Right, so my name is Andrew Morgan. I am the host of something called the Cyber Call. I work behind the scenes with a lot of cybersecurity vendors on go-to-market, and I also put in Write a Boom. That is the upcoming cybersecurity summit that is happening next month in Dallas at the Gaylord Texan. I'm joined today with Wes Spencer. Wes has been my co-host from the beginning on the Cyber Call. I'm going to let each person introduce themselves momentarily, and we're also joined with James Carrol, the co-founder of Hacket Cyber. Today is we're talking pen testing, but beyond the compliance checkbox. Just a touch of housekeeping. Both chat and Q&A are enabled. Love chat. We do it all the time. If you've ever, just maybe in chat, say if you've ever been on a cyber call, I'd love the yes or no, a Y for yes, N for no. Have you ever seen one? We've have now, Wes, over, I think it's 5,600, either 65 or 56. I forget what the number.
Crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
100 now, MSPs. Let's just make sure everybody's can chat.
Someone said chat is disabled. I wonder if the admin folks can fix that.
Yeah, Maddie, can you help us out there? I'm glad.
Will do. Yep.
We're checking.
Give me one moment
here. Okay, so I misled you, not purposely, but hopefully momentarily chat will be enabled for you all. Q&A will be. There we go. Fantastic. There it comes.
Perfect. Okay.
All right,
Good to hear.
Yes,
Good to hear.
We can hear you
now we're getting flooded.
Awesome. So yeah, just like on a cyber call, if you've been there, go, give us tons of chat, comments, etc. If you have a question, can I just ask to throw it into Q&A versus chat so I don't miss it and I can bring it up to Wes and James. Okay. It's being recorded. There's going to be $100 giveaway at the end, Maddie, that we'll spend some time there. I'll make sure we draw a winner for the Amazon gift card. And I think that is it. I'm going to put a poll up real quick to start things off. A little controversial poll. Why not? Let's start things off that way. We'll keep that poll up for a minute or so. James and Wes, feel free to answer that one as well if you'd like. But let me set the stage. All right. So most of the time, when we think about pen testing, we start to think about, a regulatory or a compliance checkbox, right? Wes, your years in banking, right? It's like, hey, the FFIEC is coming in, it's audit time. It's one of the, and in a lot of frameworks, obviously, one of the areas of controls and measurement, right? So that's historically, or hey, we're doing SOC 2 readiness, or we have a software product. Wes, you've been involved in quite a few software startups. We need to do some, obviously, pen testing, web app testing, etc. But times are shifting. And Wes, I'm glad you're here from the perspective of one thematic that's changing. And James, you and I have had you on another webinar about this, cyber insurance. So I'm really curious about, your thoughts today on cyber insurance and, will pen testing become mainstream? There's also a lot of, debate out there and a lot of sarcasm on automated pen testing, the $99 pen testing, all those fun things that people have a lot of comments in the space about. But aside from cyber insurance, we have, things around security assessments, which, again, your maturing MSPs, your MSPs that are leading the pack, if you will, are using it as differentiator. Right. You talk a lot about iron sharpens iron, and I'll let James talk about that today. And last but not least, not saying this is the only thing, but customer due diligence, right? Larger customers, regulated customers, so all of that said, that is where we're going to dig into a bunch of questions today. So with that, James, let me let you introduce yourself, and then Wes, and we'll get right on into it. I'll end the poll. We'll look at what the results are.
Cool. Awesome. No, thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me. My name is James Carrol. I'm a co-founder of a company called Hacket Cyber. And what we do, like our name implies, is we're ethical hackers, we're pen testers. We work a lot with the channel community, MSPs, CPA firms to help fulfill their customers' requirement. Really, help secure their customer. We're, I like to say, offensive security or offensive cyber company, but our goal is to make our customers more secure. And I think the good thing about working with, different partners and, different resources is that we all can align to that goal of making, whether it's, an MSP or whether it's an end customer, a bank or a credit union or a gas station, making them more secure and making them less or more resilient to intrusion and attacks.
Yeah, interesting. And James, are you, just out of curiosity, it'll probably be a question in there that I may have even forgot, but I'm just curious because we talked about cyber insurance. Is there an uptick? Are you seeing an uptick, just demand from things like that?
For sure. Yeah. It's funny because, 10 years ago, if I went into a small CPA firm, right, or even like a small law office, and I'm like, hey, you guys should get a pen test, they'd be like, they laugh me out the door. Now they're coming to their MSP or coming to our website and saying, hey, I got this sting from our cyber insurance group about this thing called a pen test. Like, do I need to buy big pens for this? Like, what is this? I noticed you do it on your website. And, you start that conversation there. So yeah, it's been, it's really a trickle down effect in terms of who needs it and who's reaching out to us to get something done.
Yeah, cool. Wes, so segment over to you. You're working in the insurance. Say a lot of people out there probably know you, but give us a little overview of yourself.
Yeah.
And love your thoughts on,
Sure.
we're talking cyber insurance.
Yeah, for sure. So, hey, everyone, my name's Wes Spencer, if we don't know each other. And I'm an old school bankster and cybersecurity nerd, and was one of the co-founders at a company called Perch Security that we sold in 2020. And now I am helping MSPs and clients of all sizes in their cyber insurance journey, which is a major, major struggle and a huge challenge. At FifthWall Solutions, I'm the channel chief, and just helping people kind of get through this. Like, what are the challenges? How do we do this correctly? How do we solve this problem? What's the future of cyber insurance looking like? Why do I need it? How do I explain it to a client? Literally all of those things that we do at FifthWall. And all we do is cyber insurance. It's literally what we eat, breathe, live, sleep. So we don't touch anything else, just cyber. And then, Andrew, I'm also the co-founder of a brand new company called Empath Cyber. You can check that out, empathcyber.com. If you scroll to the top of the chat, if you joined us, Andrew put a bunch of links in. You go check that out. Just helping MSPs in their journey in cybersecurity, because cyber is hard, and especially for like VCIOs and account reps and those that don't know how to speak cybersecurity, they feel intimidated. And on this shoulder, you got that imposter syndrome sitting on you, and you're like, how do I do this? Empath is for you. That's why I've created it. So that's
cool.
what I'm doing. And really glad to be here and really glad to be talking about this convergence, as you said, Andrew, between pen testing, cyber insurance, and the future of where security is going.
Yeah, very cool. If you ask John Strand, he says security is very easy, Wes. So
Yeah.
All right. So let's get some kind of level setting, James, starting with you, in terms of terms interchangeably used and confused. Can you kind of help some folks with demystifying what a pen test is? Talk about things like, when you're doing social engineering pen testing, physical web infrastructure, and then commonly, thrown out there is red teaming, right? So let just level set for us those things, if you would.
Yeah, for sure. And I could probably do an hour just talking about this. But yeah, it's something that, honestly, it's plagued the industry for a while, is the confusion on terms, right? And to an extent, I think it's our fault as practitioners of not defining this, and you can talk to 10 different people and probably get 10 different answers on this. But, there's, people who are like, well, what's the difference between a vulnerability assessment and a pen test? I like to explain it as a vulnerability assessment is I walk by your house and I'm at the street and I'm walking my dog and I go, you know what, that window looks like it might be open. And, that door looks like it doesn't have a lock on it. And then I just keep walking. Whereas a pen test is I walk by and I go, that window looks like it might be open. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to try to open it. And if I can't open it, I'm going to see where I am in the house. Can I go and, get to a safe or get to a bedroom or steal valuables? That's the main difference there. And, it comes in a lot of different forms, right? There's obviously network pen testing, and the most common stuff we see there is like external, which is trying to hack somebody or trying to gain access remotely. There's internal, where you take the vantage point of basically an assumed compromise, where you start inside that network. And the goal is, I love saying that the goal is to go from 0 to hero. No access at all to domain administrative access. It's not just can you do it, it's how many different ways can you do it? What are all the kill chains that the kill chains that can lead to that level of access? And then you got web, mobile, API pen testing, right? As we see more and more companies moving desktop software to the cloud, right? Well, now it's open to everyone, right? It's publicly available, it's publicly accessible. You got to make sure you're securing that. Social engineering, or people pen testing, as I love to call it. Yeah, that takes so many different forms. You got phishing, smishing, vishing. I mean, there's a bajillion ishings, but Andrew, I think one of my favorite ones is physical social engineering, is gaining access to buildings. And I tell this story. I don't know what presentation I do, but I tell this story. It's like how I first got into social engineering. And I was like I grew up in Utica, New York. I don't know if anyone here is from Utica or been to Utica. Not a whole lot to do in Utica, New York, especially in the winters. So being like 16, 17 years old, we'd want to buy alcohol. And the issue is, well, we're 16, 17 years old. We don't have fake IDs. So what we do is, I remember sitting down with my brother and I'm like, how are we can figure this out. And we'd find gas stations that were close to construction sites. And I was always like kind of a beefier kid. Like I'd lift weights and stuff. So I looked a little older than I was. And I'd put on like a t-shirt, like a wife beater type tank top. I put on a construction vest. I have a yellow hard hat in my hand that I stole from my dad, beat up jeans, Timberland boots. And I'd walk into the gas station. My whole scheme here was, I'm like, hey, I work at the construction site. I'm trying to buy the sturdy and natty ice. I don't have my wallet. I've lost it a million times on the job. Can you help me out? And more often than not, people would do it. I'd pay cash. I'd leave. And that was like the first social engineering that I've ever done in my entire life. But yeah, then that's like, really when you think of people pen testing, it's deception. It's that type of mindset, but across a lot of different mediums.
Interesting. Very, very cool. And how about just touch on red teaming for us, if you would?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, people ask me like, well, first, if someone's always good, like if someone calls me and says, what, James, I'm interested in getting a red team assessment done. I'm like, okay, well, when was your last pen test? Because it's not for everybody, right? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, companies out there that would, love to sell 6-figure red teaming jobs to everyone that would sign up. But at the end of the day, it has to be a good fit. And it's more threat emulation. It's trying to get a maldoc, which is a malware infested Word document, into an inbox, typically through phishing, getting them to click that link, bypassing any defense, whether it's AV, whether that's web filtering, whether that's a SOC, right? Connecting that to a command and control server, and then moving laterally just through that single piece of it, or that single avenue of initial access. You're not really, with a red team, you're not really concerned about finding every vulnerability. You're not really concerned about checking patching, checking configurations. You're concerned about, can I gain access from this user's computer to sensitive data? Can I exfiltrate it? Can I get access to the domain controller? And it's more capture the flag, threat emulation based.
Got it. And if we had time, I'd love to talk purple teaming and that whole thing, but it's really interesting. The whole, spectrum of things between, offensive, defensive, and okay. One other thing, James, can you talk about some of the reasons you get called in? And we're certainly going to talk scope coming up here, because I need a pen test is one of the, like most vague things you can get. It's like, hey, I'd like red wine. Okay.
Yeah, it's a great example. I want steak.
Yeah, exactly. So talk about, things that you're getting called in for. Has it changed over, the course of time doing this in the past decade for you? What trends do you see?
Yeah, I mean, first start in this industry was compliance based mostly. So banks and hospitals, right? FDIC, HIPAA based compliance, high tech, meaningful use. They'd call us in for that. And it was mostly because they needed it, right? And, the CIOs there and the IT managers knew that they needed it. They had auditors that said they needed it. So they knew what they wanted, right? They knew, who to call. They knew what the scope looked like. And that was, it still is, the majority of our business is compliance based. Within the past, especially the last 5 years, cyber insurance questionnaires, vendor due diligence questionnaires, internal security initiatives, or it's always great to see, which is a company that, especially if they're in a vertical like manufacturing or something like that, and they have an internal initiative as part of their standard operating procedures and their policies to get an annual pen test done. We're seeing a lot more of that. But in terms of like, especially like small businesses under 30 employees actually reaching out and saying, I want a pen test, mostly due to cyber insurance questionnaires, mostly due to whether, vendor due diligence. So they're working with, let's say, a JP Morgan Chase, let's say they're their customer. JP Morgan's going to reach out and say, well, okay, we protect our data, but what are you doing to protect our data? And can you prove that? And a lot of times they do that through a bunch of different things, but one way is through a pen test.
Interesting. Wes, two things I'll note. One is we just finished a cybercast on service provider management. And so it's a kind of an interesting segue. That's CIS Control 15. That'll be out soon. But speaking, James mentions a lot around cyber insurance. I don't know how many MSPs you guys are working with now, which obviously downstreams to thousands and thousands of conversations to small to medium businesses. But talk to us about, from a cyber insurance perspective, what you're seeing from pen testing. Is it going to become a staple? Could we see, telemetry, like based things around pen testing? Give us your thoughts here.
Yeah.
Everything.
We're getting ready to hit 700 MSPs, which is nuts, Andrew, it's nuts. Great question. And so keep in mind, for those of you that are listening, let me just hate on cyber insurance for just a minute. I sort of approach this agnostically of like, look, I don't, whoever your carrier is, it's great. I'm not here to stand up for any of them or tear any of them down. Right. And so when it comes to the carriers, they're really behind, like they don't really know what good security is. And if you've gone through these really frustrating questionnaires and you feel like there's ambiguity and there's vagueness in them, and you're like, why? That's the wrong question. Or like, I can't answer it in this way, or what you're expecting me to answer is not exactly right. That is really common across almost every carrier that's out there. And so you see this with pen testing too, is that what a lot of times carriers will do is they do data gathering. So they view these questionnaires they send you. They used to be this one page of bliss, what's your business name? What's your revenue? What's your address? Can you fog a mirror? You got insurance, right? And Oprah was handing it out to everybody. You get it. And today it's 10 pages and it's all kinds of like form fills. You got to explain things, maybe attach documents. It's become a really big thing. And so they look at these questionnaires as their one opportunity to truly assess you and understand, what are you doing and what risks do you present to me? The problem with that, of course, is that, first of all, these point in time assessments are really bad, because what happens between the time you fill it out and the rest of the 365 days? The other problem is a lot of times they're data gathering. And they won't tell you they're data gathering. So what they're doing is, remember, they operate off of decades of actuarial data. I can tell you, if you're this gender and this age and this location with this car with this many miles, this is the risk you present to us scientifically. In cyber, that does not exist, right? There is wild differences between company A and company B. And so from that perspective, they're still trying to figure this out. And so it comes to pen testing. I'll give you one example. Beasley they are the leader when it comes to asking about pen testing. They're the ones that are asking that in their questionnaire, and I applaud them for it. Now, Andrew, it's not a pass fail yet. It's a data gathering question. They don't tell you that, but it's there. And what's great about it is two things. One, it forces the client to say, I had to hit no on that. And is that bad? Like, why is that important? Right. So it opens up conversations about why I had to say no about it, right? The second thing that it does is it lets them in history. Once they go through, begin to see how many clients ticked yes on, do I do a pen test, and had a claim that we had to pay out on, versus how many didn't. And that is really valuable to them. Now, I understand if you're listening, you're like, yeah, but Wes, they're just asking if you're doing a pen test. They're not asking the quality. They're not asking the scope. They're not asking all the critical things that James is talking about. Yes, that's correct, but they're going to get there. But right now, we're just at the beginning iterations of, do you do it? Yes or no? And what's going to happen is all the other carriers are going to follow suit. So they all look at each other's questionnaires like, well, that's a really good question. We should steal it. So you're going to see in the next year, more and more carriers begin to ask the question. It's data gathering, but eventually you'll see some carriers say, based on your industry, based on your size, based on your revenue, we're going to require a pen test. And so that day is absolutely coming to fruition.
Wes, I'm gonna come back to the other question I had a minute, but I want to jump to James. I love what you just shared. So again, James, a lot of the times with these questionnaires, I'm going to make a statement, two statements. One, it's, I need a pen test. So I want you to talk about scoping, really critical piece of this whole thing. I also want to mention about, maybe from a legality standpoint around don't guess. When you don't know, don't guess, Wes, and maybe I'll come back to you on that. And we can talk about things like the traveler's case and what might happen, even if you think you're doing something correctly, like there is MFA. Well, that they didn't say specifically what the type of MFA and where they wanted the MFA. So James, first part on the scoping piece, why so critical? Why do you really need to get out of the vagary, especially when we're talking these types of things?
Yeah, and this is something that we encounter a lot, especially when like someone calls you up. Hey, I need a pen test. Well, what do you want in scope? I don't know. Like it just says pen test. We want that. Like you just sell that, right? And it's not. Trust me, I wish it was that straightforward. It's not as straightforward as that. Typically it requires kind of a review of their business. So okay, well, first of all, who's requesting it? Is it cyber insurance? Is it a customer or a partner? Let's say it's a partner. Okay, cool. What kind of data do you store? Well, we store, everything we store is in Azure. It's it's an application we built. Okay, cool. You probably need cloud review. You probably need a web application. Does anything touch endpoints? Well, usually something touches endpoints no matter what people tell you. So we should probably look at endpoints as well. So it goes beyond just the one-line sentence in a questionnaire or a document that you get. It requires, really, I like to call discovery, right? And that's what we do when we scope every job is, okay, what's the business driver for this? Why do you want this done? Tell me what that looks like, your relationship with that vendor, that customer looks like. Tell me tell me what kind of data you have with customers. Tell me where that's stored. And then we can kind of drive the conversation. What should be in scope here? Typically, if you've never had a pen test done, you've never had any kind of cybersecurity assessment done, external, internal is a good place to start. We do a lot of social engineering as well. There's products out there that, do automated phishing and training, which are great. We'll do, our social engineering is a lot more red team focused, threat emulation focused, but, external, internal is always a good place to start. But like I said, it depends on your business.
Got it. And Wes, before I hit off to you I'd love for you to talk about the vagary. And from a legal, again, it would be great to have like an Eric Tildes in here to talk legal, but about guessing and clarification. But James, Mike Parsons really brought some good points up in chat. He's, talked about old machines, pen testing, like, again, and the reason I want to segment to Mike's points here is about scope, right? And about, a pen testing firm can bring down system. And it made me, I joked around with Mike in here about your, dealing with a massive utility and, forget, infrastructure where we might have gigabit switching and good, you get called into things also that are like ancient and an entire city could go out.
Yeah, they're not my, they're I like to call them high risk, low reward type jobs, right? It's like there's not a lot of fun to be had when you're doing those. It's very high stress. But yeah, and I was reading Mike brought up a lot of really good points, like SCADA networks, for example. We've done some that controlled power for big cities, and you go into the server room and everything's older than me. And we're trying, like, okay, we got to plug into the switch. And like, well, when you plug into the switch, it's kind of like a game of operation where these Ethernet cables haven't moved in 20 years. So if you just touch them, it'll break and take everything down. So like you're over there literally with like needle pliers trying to get stuff moved around on the switch so you can plug in there. Yeah, you don't want to take anything down. And the goal, especially if we're doing like a web application or a SaaS-based product, is we prefer to test something like that in not in production, either in dev or staging. But yeah, when you do this for a while, you kind of know what might cause business impact and what you're pretty safe with. So you can you can definitely tailor your approach that way. But, some of the oddball stuff, like the SCADA stuff, I mean, through Rockwell automation, PLCs, I mean, those things are a little bit of an unpredictable wild card to an extent.
So when you are to Mike, to kind of close this out, because again, you have an MSP there that, let's just say brings in a pen testing company and they're like, hey, I brought you in, please don't take my customer's network down, James. How do you kind of, again, make, I know you can't guarantee anything, right? Things happen, but how do you kind of mitigate as best you can and working with an MSP, or as Mike said, in his case, he had a Fortune 50 company. Are there things that can be done to mitigate?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is it's just good communication. If there's scenarios like that, the first thing we'll ask on the scoping is, have you had a pen test done? Was there any business interruption? Do you know what caused it? And what we'll do is we'll present findings. We won't exploit them like, hey, based on these factors, we believe that this 2008 server is vulnerable to MS 17010. If we exploit this and we don't have domain user creds, we could crash SMB. If you crash SMB, you might take the whole network down, or we might crash the DC, or something else might happen. And we'll weigh those risks. Like, do you want us to do it? If you want us to do it, okay, well, let's do it in a controlled environment. Let's do it off hours. Someone's on site, hands-on keyword in case something happens to remediate. We definitely don't want to. And people, I had a customer ask me last week, like, do you do any like denial of service? I'm like, what do you mean, like stress testing? Like, will you try to throw traffic at us to crash it? I'm like, absolutely not. Like, well, because the last person that did this like 5 years ago, they did that on everything and they crashed everything. I'm like, I don't really understand what you're trying to prove with that other than taking stuff down and causing damage. So yeah, it's that, I like to say, it's safe to say there's in a pen tester's mind, you don't want to take stuff down. You want to exploit stuff. You want to gain access to it. You can't do that if it's offline.
Yeah. Mike, you're bringing up great stuff. I'd wish we could have a whole conversation here about, vulnerability management preceding good pen testing and on and on and on and on. Wes, talk to us about, okay, let's go back just for a moment. Guessing. Right? Questionnaires, the danger of guessing. Hey, you need a pen test. It says right here, the cyber insurance questionnaire, I need a pen test, or you need MFA, or like vagary. And talk to us about that. What should you do? The dangers of just going, sure, yeah. And maybe a little bit, we've had, Eric on, Eric Tilds on about this, about, filling stuff out for MSPs, filling stuff out for their customers.
Yep. So
unpack that, if you would.
Yeah, let me, so there's a lot you gotta know with this. One of those is when you are going through these questionnaires, if you have a question, if you have a yeah, but, or a it depends, that's always your trigger to go and explain this. So you always have the ability at the very end of the questionnaire, or just attach a Word doc to it, to add encircling, encompassing information. And this is CYA material, right? Let me give an example of this. Let's say you have a questionnaire and it says, do you run multi-factor authentication everywhere for all users and all devices, including network switches and routers? And you're like, well, that doesn't exist. MFA is not a thing on routers and switches, right? So that's your cue to say yes, but okay, there I go. So I'm going to go say at the end, in question 14, you asked this. The answer is yes, we have MFA rolled out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but we don't have it here and here and here. And we just wanted to make sure that you're aware of it. The reason that's CYA is because should an incident occur and that router was part of the source of that breach, you're going to be able to go back and say, we disclosed this to you. You clearly told you when you decided to bind with us, we disclosed this information, and this goes to your favor. There's a bit of a nuance, maybe a bit of a misinterpretation that people have, are like, oh, insurance, they'll never pay out on these things. In every, not many, in every case I've seen, Andrew, where insurance doesn't pay out, it's because there was a client misunderstanding or someone didn't fully, they misrepresented, and these things happen. So when you disclose these things and you let them know and they bind with you, when you look at how courts rule in these kind of arbitration kind of events, they always side with the insurer, not the insurance, because it's this thing called proximity of information. In other words, the courts sort of look at this and they say, you as the carrier know a lot more about insurance than the client does. And so therefore the burden is on you to be really clear on what is required and not. And so when the client disclosed that they didn't have MFA in this area, and that was part of the source of the breach, you are not allowed to deny that claim because they clearly disclosed this to you. So these things rule in your favor. And so my point, Andrew, is just that's if you get in the habit of that, of protecting yourself when you're going through this and carve out and explain exceptions or concerns you have, that will go miles to make sure you have coverage over the top of you when you're going through these insurance questionnaires.
Good stuff. And then maybe just close us out in this area, Wes, with MSPs filling out, again, we always want to help our clients filling out versus, hey,
right,
what's in your MSA? Because a lot of times MSPs, believe it or not, are betting, and I can, if I remember, I'll put the URL in. We did a great cyber call on this, but MSPs can be betting their entire company based on lack of coverage and indemnity MSA. Why should you not sit there and fill it out for the customer?
Yeah. So even though the client is the one that signs their name at the very bottom and they're ultimately responsible for these things, in the insurance world, that doesn't mean that there could not be negligence that comes in because you failed to have an MSA that protected yourself, right? That carves out what their responsibilities are, what your responsibilities are, making sure you notify. Like Eric Tildes talks about this often, of like lawsuits where like, you weren't doing some best practice for the client and you tried to get them to have this exception. They signed this exception, so you thought you were totally covered. And then they take you to court, and in deposition, the conversation goes like this. They say, well, you signed, Mr. Client, that you didn't want MFA. And now the insurance carrier has denied me over this breach and we're stuck with this. So we're coming after you for negligence. And you're like, no, here's that one pager you signed. And then the client says, well, I wouldn't have signed it if you had told me how important this was. And,
Right.
and you didn't properly educate me on this. Again, where's the court going to decide? It's not up for me, but I don't think you're in a great position of an MSP when you clearly had negligence and didn't deploy a best practice solution. And so you cannot be the one to just like go do, oh, I'll handle this for you. I'm going to sign this whole thing. We'll take care of it and give you the don't do that.
Yeah.
Use these as opportunities to get through these big misalignments. And I think you should even get in the habit of like, hey, look, cyber insurance isn't going to allow you to do this. I know you don't like MFA. I know it's a little tough for you, but you got to do it. There's no questions. You just have to. It's too important not to. So I'm being a little long-winded there, Andrew, but definitely you've got to work with your clients on this, and you've got to use these as opportunities to say, hey, I can actually cross-sell these solutions when I need them to have these things in place, but I'm also not doing it just so I make money. I'm doing it because they've got to have these things in place and the liability is theirs. So make sure you have a good MSA that covers you and covers the client, and then work with them through the insurance journey end to end. And that's
Ryan,
how you do this properly.
To Ryan's point, Ryan, if we had time, we'd spend time on it. But the really important thing here to remember is most MSAs, most people MSPs haven't updated their MSAs. I'm not saying all, so don't start throwing, we have to BS. But post-pandemic, a lot of MSPs haven't even addressed them. Most MSAs, when all of this stuff started coming down about cyber insurance questionnaires and the voluminous amount of information being requested, you don't typically see that as something in your MSA with your customer. So therefore, you now all of a sudden aren't covered because there's nothing in there as the MSA. So you all of a sudden start, and again, I'm not an attorney. This is where I put Eric Tildes in there and why, and he owned a massive MSP, etc. You really want to make sure if you're going to do this, that you have the proper things in place. That's what I just want to make sure I'm very clear about communicating. James, over to you. So talk to us about what makes a good pen test. Communication, you mentioned, a big piece of it, but maybe talk about a good pen test, what deliverables come out of it, you know, if you would, and then, you know, we'll certainly get into working with MSPs, because this is the area that you actually can make an MSP shine and drive revenue. But talk to us first about what a good one looks like.
Yeah, no, that's such a good question. You know, a lot of it, and, you know, I like to answering this question with advice, right? And that's, you know, I've had a lot of people that hired pen test firms like, yeah, you know, it just wasn't what we're looking for. Yeah, you know, it was good, but it, you know, they didn't find anything, right? It's like, well, you know, when you engage with a pen test firm, you know, ask questions, right? Say, okay, you know, what certifications do you guys have? Ask for a sample deliverable. Most companies have a sample deliverable that shows methodology and shows findings and shows how they format things. You know, that's, you know, honestly, the part that I really enjoy doing. I love pen testing, but I love reporting. I think I'm a little bit of an oddball for that, is presenting the data in a way that the customer finds it useful, impactful, and most importantly, giving them the data that they need to, you know, to remediate properly. We don't do remediation. That's where a lot of our MSP partners come in and do that. But making sure that there's enough technical detail in there and steps so they can read and go, okay, cool. I understand the vulnerability. I understand why this is a risk. I understand what an attacker can do and how they can exploit it. And this is what we need to do to remediate against that. But, you know, if you're, you know, vetting companies, ask for those sample deliverables, ask for what their methodology is. You know, we've had a lot of customers say, what tools do you use? How do you use them? Right? What enterprise software are you guys using? Where do you host your command and control server? How do you bypass antivirus? And, you know, we'll answer that for them. But yeah, it's, you know, it's unfortunate. It's not, you know, and I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but it's all really good stuff, that there's no like widely adopted methodology or framework for pen testing. I mean, there's PTAS, there's a Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain, but in terms of what other companies adopt, it's a little bit of that. It's, you know, a little bit of some people do the old magic box approach. It's like, yeah, it's just a bunch of stuff that we do, and it's a Tuesday, and we feel like doing it on a Tuesday. You know, it's, you know, everything we do is documented. We use MITRE ATT&CK framework, PTAS, kill chain. I mean, don't get me wrong, we do some stuff that's proprietary as well, and our own little kill chains here. But yeah, it's that was a really long way to answer your question, Andrew.
It was good stuff. I'm putting in there for anybody that is an MSP curious, MSSP even curious about filling out, so that we did a cyber call on this. Wes was part of this, Eric Tildes, and Dave Bennett, by the way. You mentioned Dave Bennett earlier. So you'll hear the voice of an MSP, their concern about it. You'll hear a former large MSP owner, and rare to have attorneys be MSP owners. This one was in particular. And then, so anyway, take a look at that.
That's a must listen.
What's that? Yeah,
that's a must listen.
Yeah. Wes, turning back to you. One of the initial polls we put is, should, you know, MSPs be performing pen tests themselves? And we'll come back to that in a moment. But if you could talk to us about, you know, pen testing themselves, you know, on customers, and maybe just talk through the automated pen testing. You know, there's a lot of, you know, fun banter on the cyber call every week about the automated pen testing. And, you know, James, your perspective on that after Wes as well.
Sure. You know, this has been a pervasive problem since the beginning of the term pen testing came out. You know, just it as a bit of a rabbit trail, it's relevant. In security, we're really bad about standards and terms. You know, in IT, we're good about this. If I tell you I put a GPU in your computer and it's an Intel i7, we all know that's not a GPU. The term CPU versus GPU is a very well-defined term, very well-defined. In security, we oftentimes have a lot of terms we throw around that are very ambiguous. And pen testing is a phenomenal example of this. What exactly is a pen test? What isn't a pen test? What makes one good? What makes one bad? What makes one a good practitioner of pen testers? What makes one bad? In fact, the way I found out about John Strand was from the owner of Black Hills and a SANS instructor, was way back in 2013. And I posted a link to one of his talks he did in SANS on pen test puppy mills. And he was attacking this a decade ago of, we have terms that are so poor that anyone leverages these to their own ill intent. And this is exactly what Mike had mentioned in chat, is this is so frustrating for us because anybody can come in and say, we run a pen test, and non-technical decision makers like, cool, I guess a pen test is a pen test. It's like, gasoline. I don't care if it comes from Shell or, BP, as long as it's the right octane, I'm good to go, right? No, not at all. This is a huge problem that we have when it comes to pen testing. It is such an ambiguous term. And unfortunately, this impacts you because let's say you brought in a pen test puppy mill. It did one of James's examples of a black box scan that's nothing but Nmap, pops out a report into PDF, and look at all this stuff we found. Oh my gosh, you're so insecure, right? Versus, and they want to charge $1,000 for that. And James is going to come in, I'm going to make up a price. And James is going to come in and charge $15K. The client's like, why am I paying you 15 times that? Right? Well, they don't understand there's a total difference between a Ferrari and a little Dodge Neon. Right. And so there's big differences that exist here. And unfortunately, we don't do a good job of this. So going to your question of like even automated pen testing and should MSPs do their own? Well, first of all, this whole like fox guarding the hen house is a real deal thing. And most MSPs don't have the capability of being truly good enough at pen testing because they don't have the knowledge for it in-house. And they also don't have they're too close to their own tacos that they eat, right? And so they're not always going to see where they miss some things. So I say all of that and I say, I'm not against you pen testing your own clients. You just need to make sure you have the separation there in the org that does that, and you have the qualities for it. One of the great things about pen testing is we actually have really good certifications that are out there that really do show that you're worth your salt. Like the OSCP, for example, is a really solid one because it's not a bunch of knowledge stuff. You just like brain dump and answer ABCD. You either break those boxes or you don't. And so I'm not saying that anyone in OSCP is an elite pen tester, but I am saying we have some good credentials that are out there to really illustrate that value. And I think you should seize upon those things. So automated pen testing really quickly, because you asked that as well. I know there's the firms out there that are doing automated pen testing, and I think they have their relevance, but just understand it's nothing like what James would be doing. Nothing at all like it. A lot of times those automated pen testers are like, we'll do a vulnerability scan and then we'll try to test for it. Take Log4j. We saw Log4j appears to be present. Let's send that query and see if we get an answer back, right? That's sort of a lightweight, yep, we tested it, we confirmed some false positives. There is definitely relevance for tools like that, but just understand it's not the same thing as a true industry standard pen test. And here we come full circle, Andrew,
Right.
into the terms themselves and the ambiguity therein.
Well, and again, James, as we come to you and you, I remember just like shaking your head when we did this one webinar, because before we get to automated pen tests, because again, if someone says, look, bottom line, James, I want you to exploit my defenses. Let's just say that, here's our scope of bottom line. I need you to get in and exploit. I mean, the interesting part is the vagueness of social engineering on cyber insurance, because that's what you're going to do, right?
Yep.
And that's what a threat actor is going to do. Which isn't going to happen in an automated pen test. So talk to us about your thoughts on automated pen testing and where is it good? Is it good at some points? Is it, does it have relevance?
Yeah, no, I mean, everything Wes said was absolutely spot on. They have their place, right? I think, I know of some friends that own pen test companies that also sell like a Horizon 3AI or a Pantera, because their customers want continuous testing. And, a lot of it's a budget thing, right? Is it affordable? It's a more affordable way to do it. They still have us come in at least annually to do a full blown pen test and maybe a little bit of a red team too. But, they at least go and they get that and they get a solution like that to do that. So they have their place. Do I think it replaces pen testing, like a manual, team of guys trying to break in? Absolutely not. But, it has its place.
Yeah. Very, very cool. So how about working with MSP? We've got a lot of MSPs here on the call, and what makes working with MSPs successful, James? How do you work with them? How is it that they can, they're working together? This is now an opportunity. It's almost like cyber insurance, Wes. You could take the other side of this about driving revenue be based on this. Hey, we've been the MSP has been saying for years to do X. James, you can kind of come in and be that person to say what your MSP has been saying for a long time is correct.
Yeah, and that's like that's something we see all the time. We'll come in, I'll be like, like, man, you're using Webroot, like you got to use something else. And they're like, we've been telling that customer that for years. They're our only customer that's still on Webroot. Like we hear that all the time. So, a lot of times we'll do, the MSP's like, it comes from your mouth more than our mouth, but they trust you because you actually exploit it. Like you don't just say you need to do this. You say you need to do this. And this is exactly why, because we got admin access to your machine. We exploited it. We dumped credentials. Now we're domain admin. This is why this shouldn't be there. This is why you need to do X, Y, or Z. And really, like when we, that's the kind of stuff I really enjoy, is working as a team with MSPs, because it does take a team, right? We can't come in, if someone thinks a pen test is going to give them everything they need to be secure, they're wrong, right? You still need someone to remediate who knows how to remediate. You need product experts. You need implementation engineers. If you don't have those guys in house, you need someone to do that. And, we'll work alongside and help them find the right product, right? And help them find the right solution and make sure that everything they're doing is done properly and retest. So yeah, that's the kind of relationship that we like, is really when we're both aligned to that same goal of making that customer more secure.
Yeah, it's almost like Wes, because you guys did a lot of IR at Perch, not intending to, just is because you guys got thrown into the mix.
Yep.
Seeing threat actors in customers' environments, but it's kind of like the same thing. Like you see an IR firm come in, and an MSP's there, and the breach attorney comes in, and all of a sudden it's like them against me. How do we kind of make sure that it's not that the pen testing company is there to, ideally, right? We don't want to be adversarial here, just like in an IR situation. We don't want to be adversarial.
Yeah. So a lot of this comes down to good education, and we're getting there. It's taking time. We're getting there, and we were still in the days of MSPs like, oh no, this breach happened. I'm going to restart the machine and I'm going to, try to resolve this myself. And you destroy all this evidence. And yes, some MSPs are still around that have really poor controls, but by and large, 80% of MSPs that are out there now have at least basic IR knowledge of like, okay, I understand how to cordon the machine off. I understand how to isolate it. I understand how to preserve evidence. So that's a help, right? It's also a help that clients are understanding when you have a suspected incident, how you put a carrier on notice. And just a quick timeout. This is not like auto, where like you're like, I'm afraid to call my carrier because I had a little fender bender and they're going to raise my rates. Not with cyber. It's totally, the carriers want you to put them on notice. They will even give you extra resources to help you, because from their perspective, they'd rather you put them on notice and it be a false alarm and there's no harm, no foul there, than you're afraid to. And then it goes into a full scale breach, right? And so just keep that in mind. So the way we solve this is knowledge. Like we said, the MSPs being better at IR handling, knowing what they can and can't do. The insurer being better at like making sure it's possible for you to reach out to us and bring IR in when we need it for initial analysis. And then also the client has got to understand they have a role and responsibility in this as well. Is when do they signal I'm seeing something that seems off? When do I say to my MSP, this seems a little weird, can you check this out, right? So there's a lot of things that happen. And when you do those things well, then you result in a really good process that we can actually cut the head off the snake of the breach before something really, really, really nasty happens. And I've seen this, Andrew, where sometimes it's something small that's like a little crack that over time becomes the full breach. And there are many opportunities to stop it. And it's not like controls. It's not like you need a better EDR to stop it. No, you need better process and better human involvement and interaction and cooperation between the parties involved to stop that kind of stuff, right? And to kill it before it gets bad. So that's how I think we approach it. It's a lot of knowledge and education that we've got to go down for MSP, the client, the insurer, everybody involved.
Yeah. And so it's all the communication piece is really important, Wes, where I wanted to come back and working together. It's almost like, we have to, James, maybe you could take this as we move into kind of, driving MRR. But again, when working with an MSP, how do we make sure they see us as not an adversary, number one, but working together, whether it's pen testing, whether it's a tabletop, how do we help them sell to and through their clients and go, wow, this is actually a good thing to understand that, it's not if, it's when, how we need to now shift from, totally prevention to assume a breach mentality. If you could unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I always come back to this, but it's always alignment, right? It's, and there's been, thinking of a handful in the past year, right? There has been cases where company would have a scoping call, it'd be a CIO of a company, and he'd be like, hey, the reason I want to pen test is because I just got this job as the CISO or the CIO. I hate my IT team and I want you to find bad stuff so I can fire them. And I'm like, we're not going to do that. Like, that's not going to happen. We've had MSPs do it as well. Like, hey, we want you to do this pen test because, they're using an MSP right now and we think they suck and I hate the owner and he drives a blue car and that offends me. And I don't want, this crazy, almost ego-ish reasons. I'm like, listen, man, like it's not about, it's not about that. It's about making that customer more secure and the alignment of let's do everything we can to do that. But you'll get that. I mean, it's, if you're in the industry long enough, you see and hear all sorts of crazy reasons for pen tests. I had one, the worst, I'm just going to go on a little rant here. The worst is when IT support or reports to finance, like a CFO who's not technical, and you still do see that in a lot of organizations. And we've had, I can think of one very, very clearly, and he was very irate when we did a job and we found that their MSP did a really good job in securing them. He's like, this can't be possible. And he had just like the most outlandish reasons why, like, oh, well, they entered an 18-character password on my computer. So you got to find stuff because I can't be doing, like, we can't have a password policy like that. I can't do that. You hear crazy stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it all comes back to alignment, is making sure that everyone's on the same page and everyone's in the boat of making the customer more secure.
Yeah. Wes, so, I know with Empath, you do a lot of education, right? Bridging the gap of how do you have the right conversations with your customers, right? Because, again, we speak one thing, but our customers don't necessarily understand it. So talk to us maybe about how an MSP might want to broach this to drive MRR, right, into their customer.
Yeah. So there's a lot that's involved in this. And I hope you're listening today and you don't feel threatened. I hope you hear opportunity in all of this, because I recognize, I talked to somebody at DattoCon a few months ago, and they said, I started this IT thing 20 years ago, fixing printers. I got drug into IT and managed IT, and I'm okay with that. Now I've been pushed off the cliff into cybersecurity. And he's like, I'm not comfortable with that. I just am not. It's not my background, and SMBs didn't care about it. And so here I am, and we feel like imposters, and we feel like I got this swath of clients that I now have to educate on security, because if I don't, then I'm going to be on the hook when deposition comes and a big lawsuit occurs, right? And there's actually a lot of discussion going on in chat right now about this exact topic: is, do you only take clients that care about this, or do you actually have a swath of clients that you got to get them back up to where they need to be because times have changed, right? So to answer your question, Andrew, yep, that's a problem. And if you're one of those MSPs where you do have a group of clients that are behind the times and are not up to where they need to be, you now must be an educator, right? So we don't sell through fear. The reason we try to sell through fear is because we don't have the confidence in our own to really push them to do what we need them to do. And so we're like, oh, if I scare them into it, that'll get them going. Scare works a little bit, but then they forget about it when nothing happens, right? Then you're just the boogeyman. So I think you have to be an educator. And one of the ways you tie this back to a client to get them to understand is to say, hey, security's changed. And it used to be that people just like you were never under attack. And that was totally fair 5 years ago. But now you're under attack like never before. All the data shows it. You look at all the cyber insurance costs. We've seen breach volume go skyrocket up. We see the average cost of a breach, even for a small business like yours, over $1 million. And you can even show them some graphics of like why it costs so much. It's not just paying a ransom. It's all these other things that add up into the cost, forensics and legal and lost business outage and all these other things. And so what we really want to do with you, Miss Client, is really want to work towards a strategy to getting you up to where your peers are. We really want to get you to where you need to be from a cyber health and hygiene perspective, to where you're up to the times. And you need to do that because insurance is now requiring it. And you also need to do it because it's the right thing to do. And so we're going to work over the next year to get you there. We got 3 big things we want you to work on right now. And then after that, we'll have some more things. But we're going to start that journey. When you have a conversation like that with a client, 9 times out of 10, they get it, because you're tied tying this back to their business. You're tying this back to relevance to them of like, what would keep me from being in business as a client? And we don't just scare them into this, oh, you're going to get hacked. You're so horrible. This is terrible, right? And you even get to be a little of the, we're eating our tacos as you're eating our tacos. We at our MSP are doing the same things we're asking of you. We're upping our game. We're doing more because we're under attack just like you are. And so we're going to do all this together. And just remember, you're the leader in the land of the blind. The one-eyed man is king. And so if you're just one step ahead of your clients in security, you're the only hope they have, right? So go and do this now. And what you'll find is, and I'll close on this, Andrew, what you'll find is the revenue comes with it. When you do all of these things, all of a sudden, new services that you're billing for come with it every step of the way. And that's how you make all this work is, yes, it's this looming threat you're scared of, but seize on it because a lot of revenue comes with this when you do the right thing at the same time.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So Peter, I'm going to close it out with this. And then we'll do a drawing. We'll bring back Maddie. Someone will win $100 here on Amazon. Peter says, first, like your thoughts, Wes, and then James, but have you seen an underwriter adjust costs of their coverage based on responses?
All the time. All the time. Let me give you an example, and it'll be a quick one. We were working with a client who didn't have EDR at all, no EDR. They just were using like Symantec or some antivirus, some classic, consumer grade antivirus, and they were resisting. Like, no, we're not paying for it. So I was blown away. But keep in mind, at FifthWall, we're a distributor, so we work with all these carriers. We work with more carriers than anyone in the country, and so I thought this carrier is just going to hard reject them. I was dumbfounded that they said, so they wanted $1 million in coverage. So here's what happened. The carrier came back and said, look, we're going to give you a comprehensive $1 million policy, but because you don't have EDR, we are going to sublimit ransomware and any ransom related damages down to $250K is what they said. So basically the carrier's way of saying, you want $1 million, we'll give you $1 million for other kinds of attacks, but because you don't have EDR, if you have a cyber attack that's ransomware, we're only going to cover 250, hard stop, no more. And you'll see carriers do that. One of two things, it's your responses are so bad and so egregious, the underwriters say, no, we're just not doing this. Or you'll see them come back and say, it's not good. We're going to take this risk, but we're going to limit our risk and exposure by reducing your sublimits. And that's just a big takeaway. You got to check your sublimits when you're looking at your insurance. Like social engineering is a big one where you'll typically see a lot of carriers pull down. You have $1 million in coverage, but if you have business email compromise, they're only going to cover 100K of it. So you got to check sublimits for those reasons.
James, how about you? You do a pen test, you expose, hey, you need these controls, you work with the MSP, or like maybe is there positive stories like, hey, we did this, we helped our client, coverage came down immensely.
Yeah, I mean, Wes, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but for the most part, when we do a pen test, if someone's like, we have on our website box checkers or security records. Like if you're a box checker and you're looking to get a pen test to check a box and that's all you care about. And we have customers that every single year we'll do a pen test for them and they don't remediate anything. And I do it and I'm like, dude, like I gave you this last year. We had a closeout call. We talked about it. You had a plan. What happened? Like, yeah, our board or our auditors or our questionnaire just says, we just need it done. We don't really care about the findings. And, I'm curious, Wes, to ask you a quick question. Have you seen carriers care about the result rather than, hey, have you done it? And go a step deeper and say, hey, have you done it? What are the results? What are the critical findings?
Not yet. And this goes back to their immaturity. They're going to one day wake up and realize that all pen tests are not the same. And so this whole yes was a good question to ask, but then they got to figure out, how do I do this in mass? Because I got thousands of applications coming in every single day. So how do I and what we need is a standardized rubric. We need send me your MITRE standardized responses and where you're at with this. So I know finitely what it is. So that's a big problem we have.
Yeah, no, it's a good point because I know like banks have done it. Like we'll do work with big banks and they have risk registers, right? Yep. And it's whatever, they'll have 5 pen test companies working on it. Like we don't care about your report. We don't care about how you give us data. It goes into this risk register, which, when I tell my engineers, hey, you got to do this Excel spreadsheet, they roll their eyes at me, but I'm like, listen, like you got to look at it from their perspective. They're trying to get all this data formalized and marry it up to risks and threats and remediations. It's probably one of the best ways to do it.
Yeah, cool. So we're at the top. Maddie, I know we a great turnout, great chat. Thank you to everyone for, wow, what a great involvement. Let's find out who might have won the $100 Amazon gift card, and take it away.
Hey, Andrew. Okay. So while I'm picking this person, if anyone is interested in CyberFOX's solutions, obviously we are talking about security today. So we all need password managers and privilege access managers. Just go ahead and drop it in the chat and we'll reach out to you. But yeah, we're just going to pick one of our random people from the audience. Let's see here. Let's go with, do we have a Joshua Kimmerling still here? Just go ahead and like send us something in the chat if you're still here.
Joshua,
Like,
are
hi,
you
I'm
still here?
Joshua.
Yeah, just, you know, a little hand raise or
Someone's
something.
gonna change their name.
Yeah, right.
Oh, Jan, that's great to hear you love Auto Elevate. Awesome. Perfect. Hopefully
All right,
Joshua is still here. Yeah, so it's $100 Amazon gift card. So we'll reach out to him after.
Okay.
And if not, then yeah. Perfect. Oh, awesome, Darren. Good to hear you love Password Boss too. Perfect. All right,
All
guys.
right.
Thank you so much. Great conversation.
Oh, there he
Thank
is.
you.
Is that him? I'm here. See him, Maddie?
Let's see. Oh,
Yep,
there he is. Perfect, Joshua. We'll be reaching out after the webinar then. Send you an
Awesome.
email.
On behalf of CyberFOX, Maddie, thank you.
Yeah.
James, thanks a million. Again, if you look in chat, and this is going to be recorded, Wes's emails, or James's emails, everybody's put them in there real quick. And wishing everybody a wonderful day. Thanks again so much for being such a lively contributing audience. It was great. So
Yeah.
till
Thanks,
then,
everyone.
take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.